My husband went to celebrate his mistress's bachelorette party. I brought her fiancé and her family. So let me get this straight. You're screwing my husband while planning your wedding to another man? The words hit the room like a grenade, with the pin still spinning in the air. I stood at the threshold of the private lounge at Vinci's, a swanky little spot in downtown Chicago. About 20 women, all sequins and champagne, froze like mannequins mid-toast. And right there, dead center in the chaos, was my husband, Joel, dressed as, God help me, a fake stripper. Yeah, a damn fake stripper. His face? Pure panic, wide-eyed, busted. But the piece de resistance? Standing right behind me, her fiancé, Matt, her father, and her rosary-clutching, God-fearing mother, bless her Catholic soul. The look on Sydney's face? Worth every ounce of the hell I'd been through. Not even her flawless contour could cover the ghost-white wash of shame draining her face. That bride-to-be sash across her chest looked like a punchline now. A bad one. Definitely not how I pictured my Thursday night. Just 3 hours earlier, I was home, stirring marinara, waiting for Joel to come back from, get this, an emergency client dinner. 14 years married, and I still bought that crap when he texted he'd be late. Because I was that woman. Faithful, naive, always trusting. Miranda, the devoted wife who never missed a birthday, who never forgot to iron his damn work shirts. I remember it like a slow-motion car crash, stirring the sauce when a ping hit our shared iPad. His smartwatch synced with it. A message from Sid, labeled under Work Project, because of course it was. Can't wait to see you tonight. The girls are gonna flip over the fake stripper surprise. Best maid of honor and secret boyfriend ever. XXO. The wooden spoon slipped from my hand. Sauce splattered across the kitchen tiles. I read it again and again. Then I scrolled. Messages. Months of them. Hotel bookings. Inside jokes about the clueless wife and the clueless fiancé. And pictures. Jesus, the pictures. I remembered her 6 months ago at our firm's Christmas party. Her hand on Joel's arm a little too long. That sugary voice. He's been such a great mentor. And me? I pushed it down. Told myself not to be that wife. Not the jealous one. Not the insecure one. What a joke. I dropped to the floor like my whole life had just cracked in half. Because it had. 14 years. 3 cities. 2 career overhauls. All those late nights I stayed up with him through burnout and work stress. Yeah, turns out work stress had shiny brown hair, a Pilates body, and was literally half my age. The pasta water boiled over behind me. I didn't even blink. I wasn't gonna scream. I wasn't gonna beg. That's what guys like Joel expect. Tears, a meltdown, some sobbing, heartbroken wife. Nah. I had a better plan. Miranda, always leading with her heart instead of her damn head. But not this time. This situation, it needed something colder, sharper, surgical. It took me exactly 17 minutes to find Matt on social, 22 minutes to slide into his DMs with a message no man should ever have to read. 40 minutes later, he called me. Voice shaking, while I laid it all out. Every text, every receipt, every pixel of betrayal. And in just over an hour and a half, we had a plan. Reluctant, raw, but real. There in town, he told me, still sounded like he hadn't fully woken up from the nightmare. Her parents, staying at the Gardner Inn, prepping for the wedding. I didn't put on makeup, Didn't bother changing. Just threw on the same jeans and oversized sweater I'd been wearing all day. My hair still in that half-dead bun from the kitchen floor moment. Didn't care. I drove to the hotel with both hands locked on the wheel, rehearsing the words, over and over and over. When the door to room 412 opened, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore found a complete stranger standing there, me, holding a phone full of screenshots, and a story that sounded like a bad soap opera. Your daughter, I told them, is sleeping with my husband. And tonight, you can see the evidence for yourself. This is absurd, Mrs. Whitmore said, her voice shaking, clutching her cardigan like it could somehow protect her from the words I'd just spoken. Sydney loves Matt. They've been planning this wedding for over a year. But Mr. Whitmore, he didn't argue. He took the phone from my hands and started scrolling. Every message, every photo, every filthy joke, every lie. His eyes narrowed with each swipe. Where is this happening? He asked, voice low, controlled. Vinci's. Downtown. Private room in the back. Bachelorette party starts at 9. Your daughter doesn't know it yet, but my husband, he's the entertainment. And just like that, 4 complete strangers ended up crammed into my car, driving in tense silence toward the most awkward night of our lives. Matt stared out the window, silent, except for the occasional swipe at his eyes. Mr. Whitmore kept clearing his throat, like he wanted to speak, but couldn't form the words. And Mrs. Whitmore whispered prayers the entire way, her rosary beads clicking together in her lap like a quiet metronome of dread. Then, finally, Matt spoke. His voice was quiet, measured. What exactly are you hoping to get out of this? I checked the rearview mirror, met his eyes. The truth, I said. Nothing more, I added. Nothing less. But when Matt pressed, and after the truth, then what? I had no answer, because I wasn't thinking. I wasn't feeling. I was just moving, like something mechanical had taken over, a colder version of myself, sharp, clear, locked on one target. When we pulled up to Vinci's, we could already hear it. Laughing, shrieking, high heels clicking against the tile, over music pulsing through the walls. Girls' night energy. The hostess tried to stop us, but Mr. Whitmore said his daughter's name with that deep, commanding weight no one argues with. She stepped aside, without another word. And then, there we were. 20 women, frozen like bad mannequins. Confetti mid-air, a popped champagne bottle dripping to the floor, and Joel, my husband, caught mid-thrust in a pair of cheap tearaway pants. And Sydney? Her champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattered at her feet, like the final illusion she thought she had control over. Miranda, Joel stammered, this isn't what it looks like. I cut him off, didn't even let him finish embarrassing himself. Funny, I said, cool as ice. That's exactly what your messages said you'd say if you ever got caught. The DJ, or whoever was running the playlist, awkwardly killed the music. A wave of whispers rippled through the bridal party, like a slow-moving virus. The silence? The kind that makes your ears ring. Sydney, her mom said, voice tight, trembling, what is the meaning of this? Sydney was already crying, her mascara bleeding down like melted ink. Mom, Dad, it's complicated. Matt stepped forward. 3 weeks, he said, his voice cracking. We're 3 weeks away from our wedding. My family's shelled out a fortune. You met my grandparents. You helped my little sister pick out her bridesmaid's dress. He choked. Was any of it real? The room held its breath. Nothing but the sound of lives imploding. Joel took a step toward me, 1 foot forward. I held up a hand. "Don't," I said flatly. "Just don't." The tension snapped. The bridal party scattered like birds. Purses were grabbed, jackets thrown over sequins. One tall blonde hissed, too loud. I knew something was weird with her and that creepy boss. Another muttered, "Her registry gifts already got delivered to my place. What do I do with them now?" And Sydney? She just stood there, frozen, still wearing that white satin robe that said "Future Mrs. Campbell" across the back, like the universe hadn't just lit that future on fire and tossed it into traffic. Joel was backed against the wall, still in that pathetic costume, cornered between the buffet table and Mr. Whitmore, who looked like he hadn't decided whether to scream or swing. 14 years. 14 years of my life, and this is how it burned? I said, and to my surprise, my voice didn't shake. 14 years, Joel. 14 years, and I find out because of a damn smartwatch notification. The shame? Like acid in my chest, hot, corrosive. How many people knew? How many coworkers gave each other that look while I handed out homemade cookies at the office Christmas party? How many dinners did I spend rambling about vacation plans while he sat across from me, mentally juggling lies? Joel tried to save face, tried to reach for his usual script. "Miranda, please, can we talk about this in private? This is embarrassing for everyone." "Embarrassing?" I repeated, then laughed, sharp, ugly. The sound sliced through the air like glass. "This is where you draw the line? Embarrassment?" I gestured to his costume. "You showed up to your Mistress'S Bachelorette party dressed like a backup dancer from Magic Mike, and now you're worried about decorum?" Matt stepped beside me, silent, still. His engagement ring caught the overhead light like it was mocking all of us. "How long?" he asked, flatly, looking from Sydney to Joel. "How long has this been going on?" Sydney's eyes, swollen, mascara-smeared, darted between him and my husband, like she was searching for a lifeline. "Michael, baby, it wasn't serious. It's just been 8 months. I cut in before she could spit more garbage. 8 months, I said coolly, based on the hotel receipts, texts, and location pings. 8 months of working late and weekend conferences. Then I turned to Joel. "You remember missing my dad's 70th birthday? You told me you had an emergency meeting in Phoenix, cried on the phone about how bad you felt." I took a step closer. "You were 15 minutes away, at the Lakeside Inn, with her." That memory hit like a freight train. Me, sitting alone in a restaurant with my father, making excuses for the husband who didn't show, saying things like, "He's just under so much pressure at work, Dad," lying to protect the man who was actively betraying me. And now, here we were. My father had looked so disappointed that night, but I defended Joel. Of course I did. I told myself his long hours were for us, for our future, that his late nights, his business trips, were sacrifices, not signs. I even called him after dinner, told him how the cake turned out, said I'd saved him a slice, all while he was in bed with her. That memory split me open all over again. Suddenly, Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, her rosary still locked tight in her grip, like she was clinging to some last shred of sanity. "We raised you better than this," she said, her voice trembling. "Sydney Elizabeth, your grandfather was a deacon. Your aunt gave her life to the church as a nun. And you've been. She couldn't even finish the sentence, just crossed herself in silent disbelief. Mom, it's not what you think. It's complicated, Sydney stammered, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. Joel and we just connected on a different level. A different level? I repeated, tone flat, sharp. Let me guess. He told you your ambition was inspiring, that you really got him, that his wife, I jabbed a thumb at my own chest, just doesn't understand him anymore. The flash in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. Bullseye. Funny, I said. He said the exact same things to me 16 years ago. Silence. Heavy. Stifling. Joel turned to look at me, his face pale, stunned. Yeah, I'd never told him I knew. Oh, I found those messages too, I said, quieter now, cutting deeper. Caroline's emails, the ones where she begged you not to leave, the ones where she asked how you could do that to her 2 months before your wedding. The room was dead still. I hadn't known about Caroline back then. Joel had told me that relationship just fizzled out. Mutual, he said. We wanted different things. And of course, I believed him. Back then, I believed everything. But now, I wondered if she had once stood exactly where Matt stood now. Blindsided, humiliated, discarded, like a dress rehearsal. That's when Mr. Whitmore finally spoke. Up until now, he'd been quiet, watching, calculating. And when he opened his mouth, his voice was ironclad with fury. My daughter is about to humiliate our entire family, he said through gritted teeth. 300 guests, your mother's entire prayer group, your grandparents flying in from Ireland. Daddy, please. But Mr. Whitmore wasn't finished. We paid for everything, he said, his voice shaking now with barely contained fury. Because Michael's parents couldn't afford to. $70,000, Sydney. 70. For what? So you could play house with a married man twice your age? Joel flinched at that. He was 47. She was 26. The math wasn't perfect, but the sting landed. Across the room, one of the bridesmaids, one of the few who hadn't bolted, raised her hand like she was in homeroom. Should we, go? Then Matt, God bless him, found his voice again. And this time, it was quieter, deeper, devastating. You let me book our honeymoon yesterday, non-refundable, thousands of dollars. He swallowed hard. You texted me this morning about our first dance song. A pause. All while planning to sneak off with him tonight? I watched Sydney's expression crumble in real time. Her brain couldn't compartmentalize anymore. There was no more pretending, no more control. Her parallel lives had just collided, full force, and the wreckage was hers to own. Matt reached into his wallet, hand shaking slightly, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. You gave me this, he said, on our anniversary, a month ago. He read the words aloud, flat and haunted. You're the only man I've ever truly loved. His eyes locked on hers. Was that before or after your little getaway to the Lakeside Inn? Sydney buckled. Tears cut streaks through her already ruined makeup. Michael, it was a mistake. It wasn't real. Joel means nothing. Nothing? Joel repeated under his breath, bitterly. Nothing? I echoed, turning to her. That's funny, because the messages I read, they didn't sound like nothing. They sounded like plans, like exit strategies, like two people deciding how to leave their partners. After the wedding, of course. After you, Sydney, secured Michael's family money. Then a nice, clean divorce. And Joel? Poor Joel would finally be free from his cold, controlling wife. My voice didn't crack, but something inside me did, because the most brutal part of this whole betrayal wasn't just the lies, it was the rewriting. In their texts, I wasn't the woman who held him up through the worst years of his life. I was the villain. Needy, suspicious, cold. Never mind that I nursed him through pneumonia or worked 2 jobs when he left his corporate gig to start that damn consulting firm, or buried his mother for him while he was too shattered to function. I turned to him now, my husband, my partner of 14 years. I gave you everything, I said, and this time I didn't hold back the hurt. When you couldn't get out of bed after your mother died, I slept on the floor beside you, night after night, because you said you couldn't handle being alone. A few of the remaining bridesmaids looked away, their glittery confidence crumbling under the weight of real pain. I gave you everything, I said again, softer this time, almost a whisper. And you gave her the parts of yourself that were supposed to be mine. That's when the manager of Vinci's finally poked his head in, drawn by the obvious chaos spilling out of the private room. Is everything all right in here?" he asked. "We've had a few complaints about—" He stopped mid-sentence, as his eyes scanned the room. A crying bride-to-be, my husband in a stripper costume, 2 furious sets of parents, and a table of bridesmaids trying to become invisible. "Everything's fine," I said calmly, like I was commenting on the weather. "Just a small private matter." Joel, finally growing a spine, tried to flip the script. "Miranda," he said, stepping forward, "you've made a scene. You're humiliating everyone here. This right here is exactly why." "Why what?" I snapped. "Why you cheated? Why you ran off with someone half your age and built a secret life behind my back? Go on, say it. Make me the villain. It's what you've been doing in your little love notes for months." He straightened his shoulders then, shifting into that slick, confident corporate persona I used to admire. The damage control mode, the boardroom mask. "Everyone," he said smoothly, "I apologize for this uncomfortable situation. My wife's been struggling with some emotional challenges lately." That stopped me cold. "Emotional challenges?" I repeated, then laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a navy blue folder, the one from our accounting firm. I had prepped it 3 hours ago, while my hands were still shaking, and my heart was running on rage and a kind of clarity I didn't even know I was capable of. 2 weeks ago, I had gone in for what I thought was a simple portfolio review. Our advisor had flagged some irregularities, transfers, big ones, from our joint investment account into a business I'd never even heard of. I opened the folder and pulled out the printed statements, spread them across the table like playing cards made of betrayal. "Altitude Consulting Group," I read aloud. "Sounds impressive, right? Sounds legit." I turned to Joel. His face had gone pale. "It's not real. It's a shell company. You made it so you could move nearly $300,000 of our money into a separate account over the past year." The room was silent, the kind of silence that presses on your chest, heavy, immovable, like grief. Even Sydney looked shocked now, finally seeing the full picture. "Miranda," Joel tried, but I wasn't done. "I didn't accuse you," I said. "I didn't even confront you. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you were planning some investment, something for us." But then I started looking deeper. I pulled out the next set of documents. "You know what I found?" I said. "Apartment searches, real estate inquiries, in Chicago." I turned toward Sydney now. "That's where your new job starts next month, right? I stared straight through her, through the smeared mascara, through the fake innocence. "Did he tell you," I asked, calm but razor-sharp, "that he was going to surprise you with a luxury apartment, one funded with money from my retirement account, the one Joel and I built together over 14 years?" The look on her face was all the answer I needed. I took a breath, voice steady, even though everything in me was screaming. "I've been planning this exit for months. I didn't know the details, not at first, but I knew something was off. So I moved half our assets into protected accounts, ones you can't touch. I tracked every suspicious withdrawal. I even hired a forensic accountant. He's been tailing Joel's money moves since March." Joel, who'd been red-faced just moments ago, had gone pale. Like ghost pale. Like caught pale. "You had no right," he barked. "I had every right," I snapped, cutting him off. "Marriage is a legal partnership, Joel, not some ATM you drain when you're feeling entitled. But I guess you forgot that while playing Daddy Warbucks for your side piece." Then I looked at Sydney, direct, ice cold. "He can't afford you, by the way. The hotels, the spa weekends, those designer handbags, all of it borrowed, against our house, the one I helped pay for. He mortgaged our future so he could bankroll your affair like it was some midlife fantasy package." Mr. Whitmore stepped forward then, something hard flashing in his eyes. Businessman mode, fully activated. "How much debt are we talking?" he asked, all clipped and controlled. "Just under 200,000, I answered. "And that's not counting what he's already funneled out of our joint accounts." Matt's eyes darted from face to face, trying to process it all. "But why would you need his money?" he asked Sydney, hurt and confused. "Your your parents are—" "Not as wealthy as they look," I said, cutting in. "I did my homework. Thoroughly." I turned toward the whole room now. "The Whitmore family business? It's been bleeding money for years. Your future father-in-law's firm filed for Chapter 11 last fall." Mrs. Whitmore gasped, quiet, like someone had slapped the rosary right out of her hand. Her husband stiffened, placing a hand on her arm like he needed to keep her from crumbling. "That's private family business," Mr. Whitmore said, stiff and cold. "So was my marriage," I replied, without flinching. Then I turned back to Joel, who looked like he might collapse right there, leaning against the wall like it was holding him up. "You thought you covered your tracks," I said, voice low, cutting. "But you left breadcrumbs everywhere. Your burner email account? You forgot to log out," I said, eyes locked on Joel, "on our home computer. The business credit card statements? Still set to paper, delivered to our house. Oh, and the hotel rewards program? Yeah, thanks for the 'congrats on your 5th night' email. Real subtle." I took a breath, steady and cold. I've been gathering pieces of this puzzle for months. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at. Just a lot of weird little cuts. Nothing fatal, but enough to sting. And every time, I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was tired, that I was just imagining things. I looked him in the eye. But 3 months ago, I hired a lawyer. That part wasn't totally true. I'd only had one meeting, a casual consult about updating our wills. But he didn't need to know that. What mattered was the financial proof, and that was bulletproof. I've got documentation on everything, all the shady transfers, every unexplained withdrawal, every time you bled money out of our future for a fantasy. Joel's face twitched, a tiny flicker of panic behind the facade. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice cracked halfway through it. "Am I?" I asked, calm and cool. "Then call our accountant. Ask him who requested the audit of our investment portfolio last month. Ask him who flagged the irregularities. Ask him who's been tracking every cent since spring. Joel didn't move, didn't speak, just swallowed hard, because he knew, even if I was embellishing some of the details, the core truth was rock solid. He'd been draining our life savings to fund his affair, to buy his way into a second life. I turned to Matt, softened my tone. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I really am. But wouldn't you rather know now, before you say I do, before you tie yourself legally to someone who's already building an escape plan without you? Matt nodded, slow and silent. He twisted the engagement ring on his finger like it had suddenly burned his skin. Thank you, he said quietly, for having the courage I didn't. Then Sydney broke, fully. She lunged toward him, desperation painted across her face. Michael, please, it was a mistake. I was confused. He stepped back. Confused? He said. You were confused for 8 months? Confused through our engagement party? Through our wedding tasting? Through our premarital counseling with my pastor? The room had fallen into a stunned silence again. The bridesmaids, what was left of them, had huddled near the door, holding their purses like shields. One of them, the maid of honor, based on her sash, looked like someone had sucker punched her in the heart. Because they all knew this wasn't just a breakup. This was a scandal. I've known you since we were 14, the maid of honor said to Sydney, voice cracking. I've been planning your bachelorette weekend for months. I spent thousands, took time off work, hosted your bridal shower, and the whole time, she trailed off, gesturing toward Joel, who still stood there in that pathetic skin-tight joke of an outfit. Sydney's little house of lies, it was folding fast. Her fiancé, her friends, her family, all watching the carefully managed version of her unravel in real time. This isn't who I am, she whispered, barely audible. It wasn't a statement, more like a prayer, a last-ditch delusion. It's exactly who you are, I said quietly, who both of you are. People who will step on anyone to get what they want, lie to their partners, blow up their futures. The only difference now? I took a breath. I'm not playing the victim anymore. The door opened again, squeaking slightly, like the moment knew it needed drama. And in walked Jeffrey Wilson, Joel's business partner, his oldest friend. I had texted him from the car, said it was urgent. Jeffrey stopped cold the second he took in the scene. A crying bride-to-be, a stripper-costumed executive, 2 devastated families, and a room full of stunned onlookers. What the hell, Joel? He said. Miranda texted me saying there was some kind of emergency, but this? He glanced at Joel's outfit, then at Sydney's streaked face, then at the complete emotional wreckage around them. Perfect timing, I said, waving him in, like we were at a staff meeting. Since we're airing out dirty laundry, might as well finish the load. Joel tried to intercept. Jeff, this isn't. Save it, Jeffrey snapped, looking disgusted. I warned you. Months ago. I told you this was gonna explode. So he'd known. Another gut punch. Another betrayal to add to the pile. What Joel doesn't realize, I said, coolly, is that I met with Jeffrey last week, not as his friend's wife. Joel froze. What? I met with him as a client. Jeffrey cleared his throat, suddenly very professional. Our firm's PR division has been expanding into crisis management. Miranda came in to discuss a theoretical scenario, one involving corporate misconduct and reputational risk. Theoretical, I echoed with a small smile, until it wasn't. Jeffrey turned to the rest of the room now, his voice firm. Wilson and Parker Consulting takes ethical breaches very seriously, especially when they involve misuse of company resources or exploitation of professional relationships. Joel's face went pale. What little color he had left drained out, like someone flipped a switch. Jeff, buddy, come on. But Jeffrey didn't even blink. Sydney's been your direct report for almost a year, he said, voice flat as stone. That's a direct violation of our firm's workplace relationship policy. He wasn't done. You booked hotel stays under client entertainment. You logged her travel expenses as business development. You used the company card to fund this entire disaster. Joel tried to cut in. That's not. It's all documented, Jeffrey shot back. Every receipt, every calendar entry, every dollar. The managing partners are meeting tomorrow morning. He stepped forward, calm but cold. I only came tonight out of professional courtesy. Your office will be packed up by security before you get there. Sydney's head snapped up, her voice rising, panic-stricken. Wait, my job too? Jeffrey gave a small nod. No emotion, no pity. Under review. Considering the circumstances, I'd suggest updating your resume. It hit them both, harder than the affair fallout ever had. The professional humiliation, the careers they'd gambled on lust and secrecy, and now, checkmate. Joel actually staggered, reaching for the back of a chair just to stay upright. You can't do this, he muttered, dazed. I built that firm with you. I brought in the Westridge account. Which is now mine, Jeffrey cut in, sharp, precise. Along with the rest of your client list. Read your contract. Section 4, paragraph 3. Moral conduct clause. You helped write the damn thing. I hadn't known about that clause until now, but I didn't flinch. Every new blow was another nail in Joel's coffin, another quiet confirmation that my instincts had been screaming the truth for months. Matt had been silent, watching it all unfold, like someone just flipped the lights on in a dark room. But now he turned to Sydney. So you're out of a job too. No apartment, no income. Were you planning to live off my family's money while still sneaking around with him? Sydney opened her mouth, but she didn't get the chance to answer. Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, voice tight with fury. Her softness had hardened into something surgical. The wedding is off. Mom, please. I've already spoken to Father McKinley, she said, barreling ahead. The church will not officiate a marriage built on lies. Mr. Whitmore nodded, grim, unshaken. I'll call the vendors in the morning, he said. Better to lose the deposits than lose our dignity. Sydney collapsed into the nearest chair, like the strings had been cut. Her white satin future Mrs. robe, now wrinkled, stained with streaks of mascara, and a splash of wine from her trembling hands. And for the first time all night, she looked completely, utterly lost. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered. She wasn't really talking to any of us anymore. What am I supposed to do now? Her voice cracked, like she was speaking into the void. And for one strange, flickering second, I actually felt something. Not pity, not forgiveness, but maybe a kind of distant sympathy. She was young, arrogant, selfish, but watching her world implode like this, it was like witnessing a car wreck in slow motion. You don't look away. You just absorb the horror and brace for the sound of metal hitting the pavement. That's not our problem anymore, Matt said firmly. Stronger now, steadier. He pulled his engagement ring off, set it on the table in front of her with quiet finality. I deserve better than this. We all do. Joel, trying to scrape together whatever scraps of control he had left, finally turned to me, his voice low, accusatory. You planned this, he hissed. The big reveal, the financial stuff, texting Jeffrey, this was all your little show. I stared at him. No, I said. I found out about your affair 3 hours ago. Everything since then? Pure improvisation. I stepped forward, slowly. But it worked, didn't it? Because my body's been preparing for this for months, even while my mind refused to believe it. I've been tracking inconsistencies, noting details, logging withdrawals, following patterns. I wasn't even aware I was collecting evidence, but somewhere inside me, I knew. Now I was close enough to smell his new cologne, the one I noticed a few months ago, but never questioned. Another breadcrumb I brushed aside. While you were planning your escape, I said quietly, I was building my defense. That's the difference between us, Joel. You destroy, I protect. By now, the remaining bridesmaids had given up any illusion of subtlety. Phones out, recording. The entire thing would be all over their social circles by morning. Within a week, it'd ripple through the firm. The fallout was just beginning. Whatever illusions Joel and Sydney had about privacy, about quietly slipping away and building a future together, gone. You've ruined me, Joel whispered, staring down at the floor. No, I said, voice calm and deliberate. You did that. I'm just making sure I don't go down with you. I turned to the rest of the room, composed. I think we've all seen enough. I looked at Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, then Matt. I'm truly sorry about the wedding. None of this is your fault. The blame sits squarely on them. Mr. Whitmore gave a tight nod. We appreciate your honesty. Matt stepped forward and, without hesitation, took my hand. His grip was warm, steady. Thank you, he said. It hurts like hell, but you saved me from something so much worse. Behind him, Jeffrey headed toward the exit. Joel, he said over his shoulder, you've got until noon tomorrow to turn in your phone, laptop, and credentials. We're initiating a full audit of your accounts. And just like that, the room began to clear. The energy shifted from chaos and confrontation to aftermath. People whispering, shuffling, processing. The storm had passed. The damage was done. Now it was just cleanup. Joel made one last move, one final reach, to grab something before it slipped away forever. Miranda, he said, low and desperate, we need to talk, privately. 14 years. It can't end like this. I turned, leveled my gaze at him, and for the first time in the entire night, I smiled. I looked at him, really looked, maybe for the first time in months. This was the man I'd built a life with, loved without question, trusted with every piece of myself. And now, he stood in a joke of an outfit, completely lost, trying to control a situation that had long since slipped out of his hands. 14 years didn't end tonight, Joel, I said quietly. They ended the first time you decided I wasn't enough, the first time you lied, the first time you chose her. I grabbed my purse, picked up the navy folder, looked him dead in the eye. I'll be staying at the Lakeside Inn tonight, I added, letting the irony hang there like smoke. You should start packing. My attorney will be in touch about the house. And with that, I walked out. No tears, no glances back, just the sound of my heels fading behind me. leaving Joel in his tear-away pants, alone in a graveyard of champagne flutes, crumpled satin, and the ruins of 2 double lives. 6 months later, everything is different. I'm sitting on the porch of a cabin tucked in the mountains, a cold cup of coffee next to me. The air smells like pine and new beginnings. The sun's slipping behind the trees, and for the first time in years, I feel still. The divorce finalized last month. Fast, clean. Joel didn't fight. He didn't want more headlines. He gave up the house without argument. His lawyer tried to blame the public ambush, but the financial records shut that down fast. I sold the house. Too many ghosts in the drywall. Too many memories embedded in the echo of slammed doors and whispered lies. Bought this place instead, 2 hours from the city, close enough to commute 3 days a week to my new role at a nonprofit arts foundation, far enough to feel brand new. As for Joel and Sydney, they didn't last. 3 weeks. Turns out, when secrecy and stolen glances are gone, so is the spark. No Chicago escape, no fancy life, no safety net, no jobs. He moved to Seattle. She went crawling back to her parents. Whatever rep she had left in the city, gone. After the party footage made its rounds, there was no coming back. I won't lie, there are parts of how it all went down I'm not proud of. The scene, the spectacle, the fallout that rippled into lives that weren't mine to wreck. But at the time, it felt like justice. Now, it just feels like closure. I hadn't factored in Blair, Matt's little sister, the junior bridesmaid. Apparently, she cried for days. And Sydney's grandmother had a mild health scare from all the stress. The fallout stretched further than I ever imagined. The pain didn't stop at the people directly involved. It rippled out, wrecking moments and milestones that didn't deserve it. And yet, I don't regret it. Some betrayals cut so deep, the only way to heal is to drag everything out into the open and let the truth burn it clean. My phone buzzes. It's from Matt. He checks in sometimes. No, we're not dating. Neither of us is ready for that. Too raw, too cautious. But we've built something else, a weird, quiet kind of friendship. Trauma bonding, my therapist calls it. Whatever it is, it helps. Talking to someone who gets it, who knows what it's like to watch the life you planned get hijacked and rewritten without warning. Still on for coffee next week? I text back. Yeah, looking forward to it. He started over. New job, new apartment, got a dog. Little steps, but solid ones. I'm doing the same, in my own messy way. Funny thing, the hardest part of losing Joel wasn't the man himself. It was the voice inside me I stopped trusting. The way I second-guessed everything. My instincts, my memories, my sense of reality. I spent weeks after wondering, were there signs I missed? Clues I ignored? Was it all just a performance from the beginning? My therapist says it's normal. That betrayal this deep scrambles your brain, makes you paranoid, makes you scan for threats where none exist, says that will fade with time. Still waiting on that. The sun's nearly gone now, casting streaks of orange and lavender across the ridge. I wrap my cardigan tighter and take a deep breath. The mountain air feels different in your lungs when you're no longer holding your breath every day. I think about what I've learned in the last 6 months. That strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet persistence of writing things down, of noticing what doesn't add up, of believing yourself when someone tries to convince you you're crazy. I've learned that endings, painful, brutal ones, can sometimes be disguised doorways. And I've learned that I'm tougher than I ever gave myself credit for. The divorce settlement gives me enough of a buffer to rebuild. The nonprofit job pays less than the corporate grind, but it feeds something I thought I'd lost a long time ago: peace. The cabin still needs work. The roof leaks when it rains too hard, the heating's temperamental, The plumbing groans like an old man in winter. But when I fix those things, with my own two hands, it feels like I'm fixing myself, too. Yesterday, I hung new curtains in the bedroom. Simple, right? But somehow, it felt like a declaration. These weren't picked to match anyone's taste, not part of a shared Pinterest board or carefully curated compromise. They're bold, loud, a little ridiculous. They're mine. As the mountain air cools and darkness creeps in, I grab my empty coffee cup and start to head inside. My phone buzzes, a message from my sister. "How's Mountain Woman doing tonight?" I smile, type back, "Peaceful, finally peaceful." And it's the truth. The anger, it's not gone. It still flares up sometimes, when a memory sucker punches me out of nowhere, or when someone casually brings up Joel like nothing happened. But it doesn't own me anymore. It's not the main character in my story. Here's what people like Joel and Sydney never really get. Taking your power back doesn't require a master plan. You don't need drama. You don't need to destroy anyone. Sometimes it's just about standing in your truth, refusing to flinch, even when that truth shows up wearing tearaway pants and a bow tie at a party you were never supposed to crash. Some storms tear your life apart. Others blow the lies away and leave you standing in the sun. I'm grateful mine did both. Because now, on the other side, I see something I never expected. A whole new horizon, wide open, finally fully mine.